So, hello and welcome to the Wilderness Tales Around the Campfire. This is our first Tales Around the Campfire. I'm Mark.
I'm Matt.
And we are here with James Boardman. James is ex-Royal Marine Commando. He's now turned man coach, business coach, all-round good guy, I think. We'll hear from James in a minute. So Matt, tell us a bit more about the Wilderness and why we're here.
The Wilderness, what are we? We are a not-for-profit community interest company based in Worthing, West Sussex, and our purpose is to reconnect people with nature for the sake of their own well-being and sanity, reconnect people with each other for the sake of the community and our own well-being, and to learn new skills and share skills with each other for just forwarding general improvement.
I think I knew you were the man for the job on that one. So, and yeah, we're trying to recreate the wilderness here at the moment. But of course, with current lockdown restrictions, we are here in a garden, in our work bubble. We have the fire here. We have seagulls above who have just parted for a little bit, but they will be back to sing us a little chorus later on.
So part of the wilderness.
And you might hear some motorbikes, tractors and other things going on around us as well.
Neighbours and small children, arguments,
dogs,
who knows?
Yeah, who knows.
Let's see.
James, thanks for joining us today.
Anytime, good to have you. See you.
Yeah, James, how's things for you in lockdown at the moment? I see you kind of working from home with the family.
Yeah, so we got the boy here doing homeschooling, so I split it. I mean, the days that I don't do school, the homeschool, and we go to the office and just chill at the office, which is literally just down the road. So obviously, it's very difficult to be very productive when there's so much going on. So we're doing all right. It definitely is taking its toll a little bit. I think you can only be patient so long, right? A year's a long time.
Yeah.
And it's been a very, like, we've thrown everything into work. And one of the things we were discovering or really reflecting on last night is you can only work hard without playing hard for so long. When it's just consistently work hard, work hard, work hard, you just, where's the blowout? So I'm looking forward to when the pubs open to like getting on it. I've literally just scheduled our first event with the mastermind down in 31st of July. So I'm looking forward to a full day's training and then having a beer with everybody.
Nice.
Excellent.
Nice, yeah, I should look forward to that too. I'm on James's mastermind course, so I shall be looking forward to a beer with the rest of the group.
Lucky you guys. I don't drink, so I'm all right sipping tea at home, but I can. It really resonates actually what you've just said, James, and I don't think I've sat down and had that realization that that's the bit that's missing. It's been work hard, work hard, work hard, and there's not been time for play. And you know, as a circus guy, my life is about playing.
It's just misbalance, right? We're in a misbalanced world right now where I think the scales are tipped too heavily one way, which is why I think, you know, it's homeschool, work, stay at home. Like, you know, it is difficult. It's difficult for everybody. You know, there's lots to be grateful about and anchor yourself to and all of that good stuff. But it doesn't take away the fact, the realities of, like, you know, the real struggles and emotions that I think that we face every day.
Absolutely, and time and recording today. Yesterday we just found out the roadmap to in the UK to get us out of COVID restrictions. Fingers crossed they go to plan. Who knows? But if everyone follows things safely, we should be out of it by June, right?
Fingers crossed. Yeah. And then we'll be inviting everyone to come and join us in the woods at our home, yet to be located and pinned down. But yeah, June, we're very firmly holding to that as our timeline to start kicking off with events and dragging people along. So
nice.
Yeah, we're looking forward to the summertime.
Yeah, me too, man.
Yeah, for sure.
So James, at your time as a Royal Marine Commando, I mean, you must have, you know, had, I mean, I guess the training's pretty harsh, but there must have been some times when you were posted, and I guess obviously, you know, there's things that you can't tell us, but there must have been some times when you were posted in the wilderness and it felt, you know, more like a case of survival rather than kind of life. But can you kind of take us back to any of those moments?
Yeah, so I have really happy memories of my training. So if you think of like a town boy who's 23 years old and he pretty much like lives in a town, never really goes to the woods every now and then suddenly decides to join like the Royal Marines, and suddenly you go from living a life of what is like, it's not luxury, but you live your standard like easy life, if you like, to then like sleeping in the woods and trying to live off the woods and make bivvies in the woods and stuff. So I think training was a really exciting time or period of time in my life. Like when we would go out into the field, we would go out sometimes a lot of time from Monday through to Friday to learn field craft, skills, survival, all of that. And there was something quite emotionally tranquil about being in the woods, like, or walking around the woods, like in the middle of night, being on sentry, putting up your bivvy, or cooking your food or your scran and trying to get yourself organized. And the beautiful thing about it is that, I mean, technology wasn't as advanced all the way back then. You know, I joined in 2003, and so there was no like phones. I love you. Bye-bye. And there wasn't all of that, but I felt that when I was in training, when I was in the wildlands and the woods, that I actually loved it, because I was away from like everyone, everything, and I was just doing my own thing. And it's like, I always used to talk about this in training. It's like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You know, when you go through the wardrobe and you come out the other side, it's like being in a different world. That's how I kind of very much related to all of that. And as we went through training, there were lots of different scenarios, and I was in different environments. So from training to be a leader, to a corporal, to a sergeant's course, and walking around Sennybridge. Okay, love you. And although you're still in the same place, you know, the circumstances are different, but it's still the same emotions that you feel. It's still the separation from the world, which is what I love. And when I go to the woods today, you just look around you and you can just see the trees, you can just see the wildlife, and you can just hear the streams. It's the most peaceful getaway that you could ask for.
Yeah, it's that total disconnect, isn't it? And that's what we're trying to create there.
Yeah, it's, you know, you've touched on some stuff that I was going to ask you about, actually, James. I wondered, because obviously with your role that you were playing out in the wilderness, you know, with the work that was required of you, I wondered if there was much time in your head. You know, obviously, like in a combat situation, that you've got other things to be thinking about. And I just wondered if there were moments, like if you were involved in a contact, do you get snippets of the nature coming through, or are you kind of, you shift a mindset and you're in a different mode? And
yeah, so yeah, I get what you're saying. So like a lot of the time when you're in there, so like in a training environment, when you go there, you have a lot of reflection time. So the reason, I'm just going to move in here just for a better internet connection. I need to pull my modem out. There was a complete disconnect from the world. And actually, when you're in that environment and you're just sitting there in your bivvy, or you're just making your scran, you actually are more prone to be able to think more about actually, you know, where your life is going into. You know, it sounds quite woo-woo, but it's like really, it's quite true, you know, in terms of that environment. You know, if you like, when we went to Afghan, it was quite bizarre, because you are in a really, really hostile environment. But like, if you were on patrol, or you were laid up in an observation post, or you were in the base and on downtime, you would look up and you see a lot of the same star formations that you actually see when you're at home, but yet you're in a completely different environment where, you know, anything could happen at any point. Yeah. But it's funny, because along the way, I was thinking about this leading up to this slightly, it was like, it's still the same feelings. It doesn't matter whether you're in Afghan, whether you're like, I remember when we hiked up the Pyrenees, or whether you're in Bexhill, or whether you're in Woodbury Common in Exeter doing Royal Marine training, you still look up and you still see the same stars and the same formations and the large saucepans and the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, the North Star. It's all the same, but just different place. And you can almost come back to that same place, and it's that same place of escapism, like walking through the wardrobe, the Lion, Witch, and the wardrobe. You come out the other side, And it's like almost like a false sense of security, you know, especially when you're in Afghan. You're like, oh, this is beautiful. Like, you know, like, oh, maybe it's not.
So yeah, I'm going to make myself look really bad now, because the only thing that I can remember to liken it to is a line from a Disney film, a song where they say it helps to know we're sleeping underneath the same big sky. But that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting what you described from.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. It is those vibes. I think we all have different like environments. Like we can go into lots of different environments and they bring different emotions to us. You know, when we go to the beach or swim in the sea, that brings an element of disconnect. Or if you go into the city, that brings a lot of stress and frustration because it's very busy and hostile. When you go to the woods, you feel like you can completely and utterly switch off. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's lots of different environments around us that bring different emotions, different memories. You know, when I go to the woods, my missus is like, what are you doing? And I'll pick up a stick and pretend to be stalking through the woods. It's almost like on automation. It's like that's the way that I'm wired. I'm in that environment, so I'm looking at where a great camp would be, where we would dig foxholes, where I'd make a harbour, where you're entering. But like, I still think the same things. Like even today, you know, I've been out of the military for 10 years nearly, and I still have the same thoughts and processes that I fall back on.
Yeah, you kind of look at arcs of fire. Everyone else is going, hey, there's the bluebells, and you're like, yeah, I could get a wicked arc over that.
100%. Yeah, definitely.
Can you think back to a time when either in training or, you know, when you were out Afghanistan or anywhere else where you were kind of physically at the brink of, you know, cold, hungry, tired, you think, I cannot go on anymore, this is the end, yet you found that extra push, that motivation, and went through it and then looked back on that as a kind of like growing experience?
Yeah, I've talked about this story actually on the Man Coach pages. So it was what we finished a 7-day exercise, and it was a grueling exercise. It was really testing all of the skill sets that we'd learned. It was like, you know, we were about 75% of the way through training, and they really worked us. Very, very little sleep, constantly on like being jumped all of the time. And then to finish, we had to do a 12-mile yomp overnight. I think we left at something like 3 a.m. And on the 12-mile yomp, we had like 4 mock attacks. So we had to then do troop attacks. So mentally and physically and emotionally, we're constantly thrusted to the next level. And it's about the mental and emotion and endurance that you have. And like when we were coming to the end, we walked to, I guess what this was, where this car park was, and there's the 4-tonners, and I saw the 4-tonners sitting there. I was like, oh, Jesus, thank God for that. Like I'm ready to get on that. I am ready to go home. So they told us to get all of our Bergens off, get ready. And then all of the 4-tonners started up, and I was like, yes, let's go. And they drove off.
Oh.
So they then turned around and said, so they drove off into the distance. And then they said, in reality, in war, you never know what's going to come your way. So you have to be prepared. So we are going back to where we've been camping, and the 4-tonners are going to pick us up from there, get ready to do another 12 miles. We have got like 2 hours with packs around 80 to 100 pounds on our back, tired, hardly slept. I was like, oh my God. And he goes, this is an opportunity. There's the Hilux and the wagon there. If you want to quit, there's a can of Coke waiting for you here and a hot dog. Jump in there, nice and warm. We get you back to camp. And
well, they really try and lure you in as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. False sense of security and nice and friendly. And 4 lads dropped out. And they got into the Hilux and they were eating our hot dogs. Them, it was like a real instant win. It was a real quick success, right? They were like, look at you, knobheads. Hey. What they didn't realise is that they were going to have to do the previous 2 weeks all again. So they were going to have to do this again, but in another troop. Or if they're deciding that they were going to leave the military, they were going to leave right there and then, right? So we put on our backpacks, and Corporal just sprinted. He went, right, let's go. And I was like, oh, he's setting the pace here. We went down a mile to the next car park where the 4-tonners were. And he says, and he said, like, that was a test to see who really wants to be here and who really doesn't want to be here. And those 4 lads might enjoy that Coke and hot dog, but when you get back to camp and you serviced your kit and you're ready to go, you can enjoy your hot dog and your Coke, knowing full well you've got through this phase. Jump on the wagon, where you go. But I think for a split second, when I saw them drove off and he said, we're going again for 12 miles, straight away, and you know, this is where resilience is built. And you learn a lot about your character, your principles and your values, and about like what you're made of. And as Mark will tell you, I always talk about remembering a mission. I didn't really know it as remembering my mission back then. I didn't know what that was. But my emotional connection to being there was because I volunteered to be there. I volunteered to put myself through all of this for my Green Beret. And the emotional connection to put my backpack on and going again was that I wanted one of those Green Berets. You know, they don't grow on trees, and I know I'm going to have to work for it. This is what I've signed up for. And not many people know this at the minute until the second book comes out. But, you know, I used to be a store manager for McDonald's and used to run a £5 million store. And I got nothing out of life running that store. And I used to think, well, what's the alternative? Quitting or going all in on what I said I was going to do. So I think like that particular point was a real moment of where I had to really like, and I think I remember that story because it was a real pinnacle in my story, in my chapter in my life, in terms of turning things around and seeing what I was made of. And very much, I lost that when I left the military, you know, for my 3 years of like being lost, but I rekindled that and refound it and used that resilience that's embedded in me from the military to live today. It's what is getting me through COVID, I would imagine. You know, that pure resilience is coming. The dates are there. You know, there is an end to this at somewhere along the line. Just keep fucking pushing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. And you know, the story you just told there was more about mental resilience than it was about physical, really.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of our emotions and our mental side is the driver for our physical abilities anyway. So that's the engine where it begins. If emotionally or mentally we're not engaged, then physically we're not going to get up to that 100%. Mark and be engaged. 100%. It's kind of it's hearing you describe that. Then it's honouring the promises we make to ourselves, in a sense. You know, and I think that's really important. That's something.
It's doing what you said you were going to do. I think is the thing. I gave up my job. Like, you know, I gave up a well-paid job as a 23-year-old. You know, I could have had a great career, whether it's like McDonald's or not. You know, as soon as you get up to corporate level, it's a really good career. But that wasn't for me, it wasn't what I was about in life. You know, it's not what I was trying to achieve. I was trying to achieve something more in life. It was more about fulfillment and figuring out who I was at that early age. You know, I think that emotion intelligence was what I really recognized in myself. That I literally remember standing there at the back of the McDonald's watching the operation run, which is what I used to do. I usually used to watch how everybody was working and literally question the lead, like the shift managers all of the time, and going, why am I fucking don't want to be here. Like I don't want to work with these people. I don't want to have to fucking deal with the customers. You know, I'm in the wrong place. I'm in the wrong place. And I didn't know what I wanted until I watched the film Black Hawk Down. I saw the Royal Marine advert. It was the one where he's running through the fields. He goes through the tunnel that seems to go on forever and his trousers get snagged. And then the next scene is him on a boat looking like an elite operator. And then I saw that, watched the film Black Hawk Down, and I went, I wonder what the most elite force is in the UK. So I Googled it and it come up the Royal Marines. I read it and I applied the next day.
Okay.
And I didn't tell my wife. Well, she wasn't my wife. So she wasn't my wife at the time, but she was my long-term partner. And I then turned around and said, babe, I'm going to go and join the Royal Marines. So, yeah.
That was the beginning of an interesting conversation there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, she was supportive though. She knew. Deep down, she knew. I had to go. And I dread to think where I would have ended up. You know, I look at some of the guys that we used to hang around with at that age, and a lot of the people that were in our town and environment I see walking around now 3-4 stone overweight, like, you know, going nowhere, not doing anything. They're the ones that start the bar fights. They're the ones that, like, are just, you know, not fulfilled, miserable. All the guys, you know, that, you know, I talk a lot about, and simply because they stayed the same. They didn't show, they didn't recognize or want to change or put that work in. You know, to change your life requires an awful amount of effort, you know, to want to change. There has to be a must rather than I should change. It's I must change. Why must I change? And, you know, I think I probably would have gone mentally insane if I'd never joined the military.
And I think for everyone kind of listening to this at home, you know, it's been a tough year for everyone. Nearly coming up to a year now, isn't it, of lockdowns? You know, and if you're ready to make that change, you know, just stepping outside the door, this is what we're trying to encourage, and just getting out there. And reach out to us as well, because, you know, we will be running some courses soon. It's looking like June is on the cards for us to be able to get out there again, and you can join us around the campfire. Have a bit of fun as well. So
and tell us your stories.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to hear that.
We want to hear everyone's stories.
And it's a question that I'd like to pose to all of our guests that spend time out in the wilderness. It's a bit of an odd one. What's the weirdest thing or the most unusual thing that always is in your kit bag when you go out into nature? And how did you come to finding that needed to be in your kit bag? It doesn't matter how obscure it is, and it doesn't matter if you can't think of anything that obscure, but...
It's like, so here's my mentality, right? And I think this must be a military thing. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily out of normality, but every time I go anywhere, like, I don't just mean the wilderness, I mean I go anywhere. I have my camelback, and I always have 2 litres of water. I have a pocket knife, string, and kind of like 3 granola bars, and I have a head torch and batteries, and it doesn't matter if it's the middle of the summer or whatever. My mentality is that if World War III broke out, I'd have enough to last me for the next, like, and a spare battery pack with a wire, like a USB wire, you know, it's battery pack, so I've got enough battery to last me. And I'm always at the mentality, if something goes wrong, if I'm in a survival situation, I've got everything that I need to be able to survive. And I think, and Jemima's like, every time we go out, she goes, why do you need to take all that? And I went, what if something happens to one of us out here? Like, something like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm always the what if guy, or I'm always the just in case guy. So, and that's what I do. And I pretty much, even when I go to town, just to pick up shopping, I take my backpack, and it's always the same stuff in the same place, so I don't really change it. Yeah. And one thing that probably is the most weirdest is probably the toilet paper, because you just never know when you need to go to the toilet.
The best advice ever. There you go. Thanks, James. New
Year's, and I'll give you a little concept on this. When I did my marathon on New Year's Day at 4 in the morning, I got about halfway through, and I was like, oh my, I'm not making it home. And I had to literally by the side of a bypass, like, luckily obviously everyone had a hangover, and I was like, all good Royal Marines take that with you. So I also carry combat cash as well, so always emergency money as well. So you just never know. So
a real bug out bag. That's a proper go bag, that.
Yeah, it's always a go bag. And I think that, you know, when I look at it, it's drilled into me. It's like your so, because I was a sniper, we always used to have a getaway bag. So, like, if we were contacted, you'd have to leave your Bergen, but you'd have, if you like, all your main possessions in your getaway bag. So it's like, you know, when you go out and you have your bum bag, you have your wallet, your keys, your phone, your mask, you have all the essentials. So for me, I think that just carried on, and I've done it ever since.
Yeah, nice, brilliant.
To be honest, I think that's a really good habit.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you never know.
No, when lockdown triggered, I found that I wasn't sleeping because I was waking up worrying about the most obscure things that were really unlikely to happen. And the solution was that instead of thinking what ifs, I kind of had to invest in stuff and know that I've got a bag under my desk with the bits that I need for me and the kids, like you say, to survive that first, whatever happens. We can get through that first, and maybe I'll never even pull that bag out from under the desk, but the fact that it's there meant that I suddenly was getting a full night's sleep again.
Yeah. In the back of my cars, there's two picnic boxes with like 4 litres of water, load of dry goods, blanket, and like survival. And I think that's just in terms of the way that I always think. I'm always like, worst case scenario, you know, if something happens, we got enough there for the first 48 hours.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Better to have it and not want it than want it.
Sometimes, I'm a bit like weird like that. And I sometimes think, I always say to Jemima, I wonder if we would survive an apocalypse. You know, we watch like Walking Dead and stuff like that. And I'd love to see, like, obviously I don't want there to be, but I always think I watch these films and think, would we survive? And I think, yeah, I think we probably would.
I think you would as well, James.
Coming on today, and thanks for talking about your experiences out in the wilderness. How can we get in contact with you? Tell us a bit more about your man coach and your time domination.
Yep. So they're two completely separate companies. The man coach is helping men kind of like, if you like, become the elite operator in their life again, you know, refocusing on their very best self to help everybody else around them. And then the time domination is helping business owners become the asset in their business again, by managing their time, their energy, productivity levels, and getting the balance right in their business. You can find on Instagram at The Man Coach, Facebook, and it's a State of Mind podcast and book on Amazon and Spotify and iTunes. And then the time domination is JB Time Domination on Facebook and Insta, James Boardman on LinkedIn, the Time Domination Show on iTunes and Spotify as well.
And also coming to Clubhouse if anyone's heard.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah.
At James Boardman at Clubhouse. I still got to remember to plug the Clubhouse thing.
Clubhouse, a new thing. Some people will be watching this. I think Clubhouse. Yeah. And James, just final thing. You've got a book out already, and there's one coming out very soon, I believe.
There's one coming out. I've literally just finished reading the 3rd edit this morning, so it's gone off for proofreading and dissecting for my editor. She will no doubt like tear it apart, and then I'll have to rebuild it again slightly. To be honest with you, it probably won't be out till June. I think June will be a good time as the world comes back to normal. I think it's going to help a lot of people that I think the theory is that I want to bring it out around a time when people feel optimistic about their future and maybe reflecting on what's happened and the changes that they need to make. That's all I'm going to give. I'm not going to give any names of it or anything until we get closer to the time. But yeah, it's a straight talking book. It's really focusing on the basics of what my message has evolved from over the 3 years from the first book. You know, when I wrote that book, I hardly had a client base, whereas now we've helped over 10,000 guys through the challenge now. So in terms of understanding men and the way that they run, I've really got a clear picture of what's happening. So
thank you for joining us for the Wilderness Tales Around the Campfire. Hopefully you guys can join us again soon. In June, we're hoping, and you can sit around the campfire with us. Matt, tell us what the Wilderness is all about.
We're all about reconnecting communities with nature, reconnecting people with one another, and learning and teaching new skills.
And the fire is almost out, and we're out of time. Thanks for joining us on Tales Around the Campfire.
And thanks again to James.
Thanks, James.
you're welcome, guys. Thank you.